what? I'm very excited to be chatting with Derek here. Derek Johnson, no relation. We just happen to share the same name, so it means that we're on the same wavelength in some form or fashion. And Derek is CEO of Welke Logistics, and so we're going to get into a little bit of how he's modernized a legacy company and industry. Before we do that, I just kind of want to set the stage as to why I asked Derek to join me up here today. I'm going to pump your tires a little bit as well. So I have the good fortune of working with Derek and his leadership team, and beyond bringing a legacy and traditional company into the future, one thing that really stood out to me was how much you care about your team. And I don't mean care as in, we get everybody pizza every Friday, they love it here, but genuinely care about the growth and development of your team, that they're along for the ride, that they have the understanding, and that they have your trust and vice versa. And so that's some of the things that I really want to dig into today. It's easier said than done, so you are a perfect use case and test case as to how you do that, and you'll hear some of those ways that Derek and his team have managed to do that to date. So I'll also say our slide deck, we took a little bit more of a scrapbooking approach, so you'll see that in a minute with some great photos. But Derek, why don't you kind of introduce us to yourself, to Welke, and let us know what you're all about.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I guess Welke is actually a little different. Don't have the last name, but it's my stepfather is one of the founding members of Welke. My cousin is actually in the room as well too, so we're kind of the leadership group as we kind of run forward. Celebrated 40 years last year, which was great. And obviously all the foundation that we have is instilled from our family values as well too. And the history of Welke really came from actually my uncle and my grandfather, who decided they were working at a large custom broker back in the 80s, and decided that it wasn't for them. It was very cutthroat, very not about the people, very just all about capitalism kind of thing, and really trying to push that forward. And my uncle, being a very big entrepreneur, kind of pushed it with his father to kind of start the business, and my stepfather joined a couple years later after that. But that's kind of the core values we have at Welke, is always caring about the people. And and recently we instilled kind of our tagline was enjoy the journey as well too. So all of that is part of our mantra, all of our people, what much it means to us to kind of as we operate every day.
That's amazing. And it's nice that that's carried forward, right? That's something that you still hold on to. So thinking about what has remained the same, which is obviously that kind of ethos, from a process perspective, what's changed since you stepped into leadership, and what would you say has also remained the same?
I mean, I guess the basics have remained the same. We're really clearing products across the border, moving products across the border, and developed into now moving to international freight forwarding from anywhere across the world into Canada or the US. So, 200 agents across the world that we keep in touch with, that a shipment is in China or shipments in South Africa, or anywhere across the world, we have some contacts that we can kind of leverage on. But I mean, I guess the new thing is technology. I'm sure supply chain's been very prevalent with our neighbors next door with all the tariffs that we have. So we have an office in the US as well too. So all that kind of stuff has really become very prevalent of keeping up with compliance, ensuring that we have that technology at the forefront to ensure that we can get our shipments across the border on time and in a very timely manner as well, and accurately. So.
Yeah. Ooh, and accurately. That's a big one. Timeliness is great, but if it's not right, then that's a bigger problem. So knowing that technology is kind of at the forefront of helping you do that, what would you say was the impetus or kind of the starting gun for the technology and the modernization that you've taken on?
I mean, I think when Jordan and I kind of took over, we were salespeople for the first kind of 5 years of our careers, just kind of selling with that and out there and understanding what people's problems are. We'd spend all this hard effort of closing these big accounts or doing what we can, and to be, 2 weeks later, the account left because we didn't have the proper technology or something wasn't there to kind of support that. And so our vision really instilled to being, hey, we really need that central data point to be really fantastic. And that's kind of where, when we kind of took over 4 years ago, a year before that, we did a full TMS switch, which with an aging organization was a very big hurdle to jump over. And then 12 months later, it announced we're doing another one. So that was a very big switch, a lot of data to move across as well too. So yeah, I was trying to get that buy-in, but that was kind of our first step in the door to pushing that technology forward. As I saw the future of really needing that reporting data to make sure that it's all centralized. So when our customers are looking for that proper data, whether it's a clearance from 3 years ago or where the shipment is currently, it needs to be in one central data point, not fragmented across 4 or 5 different systems kind of thing. So that was that push to kind of start that technology change.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm seeing some commonalities from our previous presentation here, right? Everybody wants their data to be in one central place, one place of truth. So obviously with any kind of change, that creates a bit of a question mark when it comes to trust, both internally and also with your clients. So what was kind of that journey to keep trust with your clients, knowing that processes are changing? Customer service might look a little different, maybe. And then internally, how did you also maintain that trust with your team?
Yeah, I think before even that, I think a lot of, obviously, as a family business, succession to the next generation has a bigger hurdle to jump over, as you know, as the 3rd generation of family business, which we are, would end up being only 17% actually make it through that generation. So that's a big hurdle that people know about. So like people trusting us with actually implementing that was a very big hurdle to start. But from there, we kind of, you know, I think we really communicated properly. I mean, we'll talk a bit later about some other things, but I think we were open about the communication. We started our town halls. We really started out with that to making sure that we told everyone the plan, not just like sticking it in front of them. So we always have January of every year, we have our strategic plan to the whole company, updating it quarterly with everyone. So they're kind of all on the same page. And that was kind of our first step to gain that trust. And that was kind of what we kind of hoped that was going to be the fix all, but I mean, as we kind of move forward in that, there was some stuff we needed to correct along the way as well too.
Definitely. And I mean, I'm going to pull on that thread in a couple minutes, but how far in advance did you start that communication when it came specifically to you and Jordan taking over? You said you took over about 4 years ago. How far in advance of that was your transition being communicated to the team?
I mean, I will say it wasn't great. That will be my first answer. I mean, family businesses are very tough. We were part of a family business network, and we learned all the pitfalls and still fell into one of those pits. So it was one of those things that was a very hard transitional with our parents not being in the business at time of passing over. So there was some nepotism there that kind of made it harder to get over that hump, and some turnover in leadership very quickly near the end. So it kind of was we're in it. And so it was happened over Christmas break, and then all of a sudden, January 1st, Jordan and I were in the driver's seat being like, what do we do next? So we've overcame that, and we kind of always seen that vision because we saw the sales size. We saw what customers actually want, not what's good for the internal, and that's always been our focus, is customer-centric. So, I mean, all the amalgamation in our industry is so hard with all the big guys out there that are, you know, multinationals, that kind of stuff. And then we're on the other side of, you know, we want to offer that high service and making sure that everything we do for our customers is visible and, you know, is apparent to them that they're seeing the value in our service.
Absolutely. And thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. I don't think anybody just wants to hear a fairy tale story. So it is great to know that you learned some lessons along the way. And if you were to think of maybe one thing you would have done differently in that come Jan 1,
yeah,
small as it can be.
I mean, I think a lot of it is just, it was something that, you know, it was kind of a balancing act that we did. And I think understanding the why, I think, was the one thing we missed along the way a couple times, is the communication was there, but not understanding and telling them why we are doing stuff. And I think that was a big for them to understand, is, you know, Jordan's 32, I'm 39. You know, we have a lot of 25, 30-year plus staff that have been doing it since we were on typewriters. So it's a very big overcoming change of that, of like, and telling them, and they don't understand the same way we do. You know, we're very tech forward, and we're like, yeah, we're implementing all this new technology. And they're like, well, that's great, but my job is still my job, and that's more work for me now. So it's understanding the why of what that future state looked like was something that we definitely missed along the way.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, the typewriter, the ultimate technology transition, hey? That's awesome. So thinking about some of the transitions that you've done in the past and now looking forward, you're in the middle of transition, and we'll show you some of the preliminary data that you've collected in just a couple of minutes. But talk to us about some of the tools that you're using that have helped you along the way to date.
Yeah, I think we kind of looked at the whole holistically, the all options of what it looked like when we went to this one system. It's called CargoWise. It's a very logistics forwards. I mean, accounting, everything's wrapped into one big package, and especially at the leadership level, with our US office, we're all in one platform. A customer can log in on both sides of the border, see all their data at one point. So that was kind of the first piece of what that is our backbone to the company. And then we started with them really originally. They had some AI tools about 3.5 years ago. We started using those. The biggest one, which we still kind of use to this day, is that AP posting. I think that was brought up in the previous session. And we're still using that actively to this day because obviously as a company, we get probably 60 to 100 invoices a day that now just goes through AI and is posted to accounting with no problems at all, which is obviously frees up a job as well too. So from there, moving forward, we saw the big hesitation we saw 3.5 years ago was time. So obviously with shipments crossing the border, we have customers that are 20 minutes from the border and won't get the documents till the door closes on that truck. So when it crosses the border, we have 20 minutes to get that entry to customs. So we saw the speed to action really needing to be there, and the first iterations were more in the 45 minutes to an hour to read that document package and then ingest that data into our system. And so actually just in the last kind of 3 to 4 months, we've seen a software that really can do it all, which we've kind of seen over the last couple of years. Have seen 80% of it there, whether it's not reading the manifest, whether it's not reading different document packs, this will now be fully hands-off besides the classification of a shipment crossing the border, but that is a smaller portion because we use a back-end database to populate all that data that's been repetitive. So really our goes from someone picking a document pack up saying, okay, there's 10 chairs, 2 tables, to now that's fully ingested all the way in, and as long as they've imported that product before, it's ready for clearance for a quick review and then submission off within 45 seconds to a minute.
Wow, that shaves off significant time. And
Yeah.
would it be useful to look at some of this information here that
Yeah.
you shared with me? Okay. You spoke to a little bit of this, but do you want to dig into like the completion time, the cost per entry? What does this mean for your organization and for the team as they operate currently?
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing as we kind of look forward as like we're going from a family-owned operation to trying to compete up with Kuehne+Nagel, a DSV, or anyone that's a multinational with tens of thousands of employees. We need to get speed and we need to get our costs down. Obviously, I think what Jordan brought to me the other day, which was very funny, is we really care about our people almost to too much of a fault. And that was kind of something in our communication strategy was we're never going to replace people with technology. And so that's been our dedication since we've done this rollout of that piece, is because that will give that confidence that we're not replacing them with that technology. Of course, with attrition, we might not replace that headcount, but we're never going to lay off at that point. So that was kind of one of the things that I think really helped us drive this. And I think from here, looking at this cost per entry, all of our stuff was, 97% of our stuff is done in Toronto. So like small amount of outsourcing, but because it's so quickly, shipments crossing the border so quickly, we couldn't use an outsourcing service. So this is the kind of stuff that we were paying a person in Toronto at a decent salary to then go in and type all the data in, and they could only really do 9 entries per day. And with this new technology, they can get to we think 31 is kind of the very, very top end of where we can get to. So,
yeah, wow. I mean, even half of that is a significant improvement. So that's fantastic. And one thing I will share, you posted on LinkedIn yesterday about, using AI and technology has never been about replacing people, and that's something that really rings true. Knowing your leadership team very well, I don't know if I've ever told you this, so I'm going to put it out here now, but there have been many comments about how you've rolled this out so thoughtfully and intentionally, and they say that with the most candor, that you have taken the time for them to understand and to kind of play with the tools so that they don't feel like they're being replaced. And I think that's a strategy that is very important, because it's one thing for people to say, we're not gonna get rid of anybody, and then turn around and, well, now that we've got the data, we might choose to. And so you have to have a significant amount of trust from your team to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So talk to the room a little bit more about how you've rolled this out with the team, how they've gotten their hands in it, so that they do believe what you say, because from what I've heard, they have complete confidence in you.
yeah, I think the biggest thing we try, even started with our system rollout, is we have that holistic training where we're doing it in person, and doing that in the boardroom with like 3-4 people at a time. And so we're spending the time with each person and not making it be like, hey, go watch these videos, here's an SOP, go figure it out. We're really hands-on, and that we really do it through a thoughtful process. And we want to sprint to get there, obviously, because we want to see not the savings, but our staff spending more time with our customers, answering more phones, calling more customers, all that kind of stuff. So like we want to sprint to get there because that's really what we think the future is for us, and getting our customers really comfortable with, again, talking to our people, because that's the biggest thing in our industry. As tenure is great, and it's great for all of us, because when you pick up the phone, I mean, we've all called UPS, FedEx, Rogers, Bell, and you get hung up halfway through. You're now an hour on hold again, and you don't even know what happened to that. So like that tenure is so great to not have that loss of institutional knowledge kind of thing. But so I think that's kind of like where we want to make sure that the future is for us. So I think that's kind of, this is helping them do that. And I think using their tenure so they can also spend more time training the new generation as well. So we're kind of seeing that long-term vision of where it's going to be in, hopefully, 3 to 5 years, and really be fully integrated in that process to ensure that we can do all the things we're talking about.
Fantastic. And being in those rooms, I'm sure you have heard all the questions from your staff as they started to play, to get to know the technology. Do any come to your mind on things that people have either pushed back on, some of their hesitations?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes from any kind of multi-generational businesses of what it is, and having people that have been there 30 years and people that have been there 30 days, is that people are like, oh, well, how do we trust it? Where it was funny, we were sitting at a dinner with one of our retired employees now, and they're like, well, AI, is it artificial? We're like, no, it's not artificial. It's just, so she was very in that old school mentality, because she's a very compliance related person, thinking that we're predicting data of what it is. We are just using it to extract data from documentation, because with customs and law and all that stuff, it's very particular on that data point. So I think just being there, again, explaining it to them multiple times, saying the why, and all that kind of stuff will allow us to be successful in that kind of rollout.
Very interesting. You brought up a really interesting point, which I think can be overlooked, and that's sometimes you have to get super basic about what things are and what things mean, because experience levels look completely different. And so the fact that you're by definition explaining what something is means that you have somebody who's probably well-ish versed in AI sitting in the room with someone who has no idea what it actually stands for. Yeah. And has that been a bit of a friction point, or do you find people are getting there?
I think we're getting there. I think people are realizing, because they have expertise that are outside of manual data entry, and I think they're seeing that future of like, oh, I can be more proactive. I'm not just playing catch up all the time, because that's always the complaint of, oh, I was so busy, we're so busy, and that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to relieve that, monotonous data entry role and make them more actually use their data set of all the customs regulations out there, kind of thing. So that's really what we want to push them towards. And unlearning 25 or 30 years of that, it can be very tough. But we're pushing forward, and I think, as I said, using champions to kind of push that down the organization to really help with that rollout as well too.
Okay, amazing. And so knowing you've got some quite tenured employees and then some new folks in the room, how do you find they're blending their knowledge together?
I mean, it's been a challenge. I will say fully that I think there has been some, it's a very common challenge in the workplace of like, well, I've been doing it that way for 30 years. And I've, since day one, been leadership role as like, I want to know why 1 + 1 = 2. Just don't tell me we did that for the last 20 years and that's why we do it. So I've really instilled that across the culture always. So I'm always questioning, like, don't come to me with some kind of thing, oh yeah, we did it that way 10 years ago. Well, that's not the right answer. I want to know why we're doing that. So I think that whole rollout from day one of our leadership role has really helped with this as well too, and obviously some training from your company that's really helped us through those points, because I think it's been an uphill battle, and I think it really resonated with me when we engaged the Venned group, was that like 81% of people don't have proper leadership skills, and they've kind of come up from a junior person 30 years ago to being in a senior manager role. They've never had the true toolkit to be successful in those roles, and having those conversations really is allowing them to succeed further in their roles now, because there was a big time for a period that it was fast moving, and I think people kind of got lost a little bit. So definitely been helpful on the training to move them forward in those roles. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And, something we covered earlier is EQ versus IQ and how technology amplifies both, depending on how you look at it. So it's nice to hear that is something that you're noticing as well. And so obviously we have some hard and fast information here to show that your implementation is successful. But behaviorally, and just to keep going on that thread, behaviorally, what are some of the markers of success that you have adoption, that people are moving forward with you? What are some of the things you look for to say, okay, we're finding success here, we're on the right path?
I mean, as we roll out further, we're doing some back-end audits because they still can't enter the shipments manually if they choose to, but we can find that out through the system of what was done through the AI tool and what was done actually manually on the keying time. So that allows us to kind of do some audits and kind of meet with those people individually, so kind of segmenting away from the larger group, and then now like choosing why they did certain things. Maybe it didn't read the documents, or some stuff was handwritten, or whatever there was, but just doing that and just asking them why they're doing it, and understanding what there is, and kind of managing as days go by with that, and seeing how we can kind of make sure that they're understanding the use for their tool and why it needs to be successful.
I'm sure that helps you understand some of the friction points that they're, right? Getting that two-way dialogue is so helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of always what we do, is we really want to stay close to our employees. And I think it's one of those things with these rollouts, I think is a very tough uphill battle kind of thing. Because I think that, as we kind of multi-generational, we got some really good adapters. I got more time. And the other thing that we really did, I thought was helpful when we first started, was the profit sharing. So I think we give 10% of our net profits to our staff at the year end, and that's allocated based upon some metrics and all along the way, but explaining to them that actually is helping them save time, and and sticky relationships, all that kind of stuff they're going to do to kind of help retain those customers goes back to their pockets as well too. So that's kind of something we've done to make sure that they're engaged in that process as well too.
Very nice. Some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I know we have some organizations in the room. I can see them around here, that are thinking about going through the exact transformation that you are. Obviously different business, but legacy business, traditional industry. If you were to give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I don't think technology is going to fix your business. I think it needs to be kind of a concrete foundation before you put technology on it. It's a good multiplier, but trying to think that it's going to fix your problems is probably not what it is, unless it's an overcapacity issue. But I see a lot of companies that I've talked to in our industry that are they hear the AI word, it's a big buzzword of what it is, and they're not really addressing the root problems of what that cause really is. So I think that's the biggest thing, and making sure the tool's right. And I think we tried over the past, looking at those ones at the 80% doing it just didn't do it for us. And so we kind of wait till that tool was available for us, to making sure that it was a good rollout. Because we looked at the one before, we tried that rollout when it was that 45-minute time gap or to what it is, and we didn't fail, but it didn't get adopted. It's like, I can do it faster. And now there's no way they can do it faster, so that's kind of that adoption we're going to get, hopefully, as we kind of move forward on the strategy.
Okay, very interesting. So that was your benchmark of, can our team do it faster? If not, we're not going to take the tool, even if it centralizes everything.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. I like that. And that's something that most people don't think about, right? Is what is that benchmark and what's our threshold for success or adoption? And there's a lot of eagerness around a technology and AI. So the fact that you had patience and you waited until the right tool came along, and was it that you just hadn't found it, or it wasn't built yet?
I mean, I think with our industry is because so data entry oriented, there's been a lot of tech, ex-meta people kind of entering that space and thinking they know what brokers want because they could know the AI side, but don't know what the brokerage side really requires. So I think that was that adoption piece. I probably met with 10 or 12 different companies and seeing what they could do. And the one that we found was kind of got them at the right time, and they didn't know 100%, but they're working with us, and we're having daily calls with them to making sure they're adopting it properly, and so helping them build their product, which also allows us to get in a lower price of that data point as well too. So it's kind of been a good working relationship to help them build their tool, and then also help us kind of succeed in the future as well too.
Yeah, some smart alignment there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with based on your experience as a CEO, how technology and this transformation has helped you be more productive as well, or any other tools you'd like to share with us?
I think the biggest thing that I've kind of learned in the last kind of 6 to 12 months is really that there's a lot of also opportunities to work with companies outside of your own expertise. So maybe some consultants, maybe some grants that you can get at, because I think that's a big part. Cost is a big piece. And, even with all this, AI with, Claude and all this, the co-work and the coding and all that stuff, you might be able to build it yourself. And that's something that you could look at. And there's a lot of grants out there that you can, reach out to and kind of do that helps supplement that back in. On our end, it doesn't really work because of all the tariff regulation changes, but if it's a simple system that you think you could do, it's probably not far out of your reach to do for, maybe $50,000 that you can get 60 or 80% back from the government. So.
Yeah. Wow. That is a helpful nugget I'm sure a lot of people will take away today. We'll open the floor up to a couple questions. Sure. In case anybody has any questions for Derek. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Derek. Where was the question? Right over here.
Thank you.
I have a first question. It's my prerogative. It's my show. You talked about sort of how you manage change and the patience that you went through in order to get that organizational adoption. Was that something that you had to learn on the job, or was that just baked into who you are as a person?
I mean, I think a lot of it's, I'll take a bit of luck on that too with the timing of everything that, because I mean, as we took over 4 years ago, that's what my advice was, is we weren't a concrete foundation at that point. We were kind of been through 2 system changes in 2 years, so our confidence with our employees and our clients wasn't 100% there. And by the time we really had gotten to that point, and I mean, I've been actively looking at AI companies and all that side because they were so data entry heavy. So I mean, I think really it was a timing thing more than it was anything else. But we could have jumped in earlier and we didn't. So I think it was just one of those things that I wanted to be right, because I knew I've seen so many rollouts that have gone sideways. I worked at a bank before, and it was one of those things, they would dump millions of dollars into something they just wanted to work. And even though it wasn't the right tool, they just couldn't admit that it wasn't the right tool. So I've seen that over my history before, and maybe that's why I also did that as well too. But it's just something I wanted to be 100% before we went live.
There's value in failing fast sometimes. Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, my question is related to some of these efficiency gains that you had through like the number of entries per day, the cost per entry, et cetera. Obviously, there's positive impacts of that. Has there been any knock-on negative impacts of that, or any unintended consequences that have kind of arisen from that as well?
At this point, we're very new into this as well too. Like I said, it's been about 3 months since we're really rolling this out kind of stuff. So like, we're really in the infancy phase of what this looks like. But I think, we are getting people questioning and getting, people talking about, are they really going to stick to their word on that? But I mean, again, to our fault, we are very loyal to our people, and we never will make those changes. We made one layoff in our history in 40 years that was non-performance based, and that was due to COVID and having some drivers. But beyond that, it's one of those things that we really stick to. So I think I haven't seen any adverse consequences yet, but I'm sure they will come down the pipeline, but at this point, no.
Any other questions? All right, we've got some hands up at the back here.
Thank you. Thanks for that good case study. I know you just said it's a relatively new process that you have here, but have you found that the transformation work you have been doing is influencing your customers' transformation as well? Like, how might they change?
Yeah, I think the customers were able to service as well too, that we are able to get at as well too. Recently signed some pretty big RFPs that we could never have access to without that adoption kind of thing. So, but again, we're pushing, our sales team is out there pushing the reporting functionality we have for all that kind of stuff. So even like we've built a tool for what we call our middleware, which allows us to communicate with other people's softwares very easily, because our software uses a universal XML input, and it's not very user-friendly to ingest data from other people's systems. And our biggest thing that we had on the pushback side is, you call a customer, oh yeah, we can do that, but IT is 6 months out. So now we can say, give us what you have, and we can take it in, and our mapping tool will use AI to map what it thinks the best columns are, and will help us make that map to do that. So I mean, I think in reality, it doesn't. It changes from the data standpoint, but it also has access to different client base that we never had before.
Other questions?
Yeah, I was just curious what factors led to this success of the post-AI implementation, whether it's vendor support, self-led learning, or just general tech enablement, wherever you got it.
Well, this is really from one tool that we implemented that will really read our documents for us. That's the biggest cost we have. So it's literally taking bill of lading, commercial invoice, packing list, manifest, all that stuff, ingesting that data in, and then allowing our team not to do that. Before it was they'd get a PDF. The OCR technology never really worked unless it was a high repetitive customer, because you might get something on a napkin, or you get something from China that is from a different vendor that you've never seen before. So the OCR never was really to get that. That AI has really sped up that machine learning to be able to read that documentation. So that's where those efficiencies really came from, is that perspective.
What's the name of that tool? Like, is there a particular AI platform?
Yeah, it's called Wove. It's really a data ingestion. They do everything, mostly for logistics process, but same thing. They were ex-Googlers, got some seed money and went out there and built this tool, but there's 20 of them out there that are doing it right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Have you started looking at how AI can help you with the tariff situation? Like, I always wondered, are you able to use AI to help you navigate the tariff situation?
We have seen some classification tools. I mean, Flexport's one of the biggest AI companies out there, or tech companies in our space right now, so it's available. I mean, the biggest problem we have right now is not knowing what Trump's going to do. So it could be...
Is there AI for that?
Hope so one day, but no, that's the biggest thing we struggle with right now, but that's where we've been succeeded, is we have a good, we answer the phone, we talk to our customers, where we've won a lot of customers from the bigger guys because they're trying to navigate the tariffs, and our team will actually pick up the phone and talk to someone, so that's really helped us succeed. But again, a lot of times as the media gets the hold of the news right away, we don't get that data from actually what the regulatory notes say for CBP or CBSA on what that is. So that's the struggle right now. And again, I think that we made an announcement last night of the change of tariffs again on the aluminum and steel from 25 to 10% on. There's a lot of guidelines behind that, but we haven't seen that that note come out.
Show up in the
CBP
regulation,
yet.
yeah.
So.
Any other questions? Kendra, Derek, thank you so much for sharing that story. It is so valuable, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.